Progress Report 14, Part 1, June 15th. Our escape hit the papers yesterday, and the tabloids had a field day. On the second page of the Daily Press, there was an old picture of me and a sketch of a white mouse. The headline read, "Moron Genius and Mouse Go Berserk." Niemeyer and Strauss are reported as saying I had been under tremendous strain and that I would undoubtedly return soon. They offered a $500 reward for Algernon, not realizing we were together. When I turned to the later story on the 5th page, I was stunned to find a picture of my mother and sister. Some reporter had obviously done his legwork. Sister unaware of Moron Genius's whereabouts. Special to the Daily Press. Brooklyn, New York, June 14th. Miss Norma Gordon, who lives with her mother, Rose Gordon, at 4136 Mark Street, Brooklyn, New York, denied any knowledge of her brother's whereabouts. Miss Gordon said, "We haven't seen him or heard from him in more than 17 years. Miss Gordon says she believed her brother dead until last March, when the head of psychology department at Beekman University approached her for permission to use Charlie in an experiment. My mother told me he had been sent to the Warren place, Warren State Home and Training School in Warren, Long Island," said Miss Gordon, "and that he died there a few years later. I had no idea then that he was still alive." Miss Gordon requests that anyone who has any news about her brother's whereabouts communicate with the family at their home address. The father, Matthew Gordon, who is not living with his wife and daughter, now operates a barber shop in the Bronx. I stared at the news story for a while, and then I turned back and looked at the picture again. How can I describe them? I can't say I remember Rose's face. Although their recent photograph is a clear one, I still see it through the gauze of childhood. I knew her, and I didn't know her. Had we passed on the street, I would not have recognized her, but now, knowing she's my mother, I can make out the faint details. Yes. Thin, drawn into exaggerated lines. Sharp nose and chin, and I can almost hear her chatter and bird screech. Hair done up in a bun severely, piercing me with her dark eyes. I want her to take me into her arms and tell me I'm a good boy, and at the same time, I want to turn away and avoid a slap. Her picture makes me tremble. And Norma, thin-faced too. Features not so sharp, pretty, but very much like my mother. Her hair worn down to her shoulders softens her. The two of them are sitting on the living room couch. It was Rose's face that brought back the frightening memories. She was two people to me, and I had never had any way of knowing which she would be. Perhaps she would reveal it to others by a gesture of the hand, a raised eyebrow, a frown. My sister knew the storm warnings, and she would always be out of range whenever my mother's temper flared, but it always caught me unawares. I would come to her for comforting, and her anger would break over me. And other times there would be tenderness and holding, close like a warm bath, and hands stroking my hair and brow, and the words carved above the cathedral of my childhood. "He's like all the other children. He's a good boy." I see back through the dissolving photograph, myself and father leaning over a bassinet. He's holding me by the hand and saying, "There she is. You mustn't touch her because she's very little, but when she gets bigger, you'll have a sister to play with." I see my mother in the huge bed nearby, bleached and pasty, arms limp on the orchid-figured comforter, raising her head anxiously. "Watch him, Matt." That was before she had changed towards me, and now I realize it was because she had no way of knowing yet if Norma would be like me or not. It was later on, when she was sure her prayers had been answered, and Norma showed all signs of normal intelligence, that my mother's voice began to sound different. Not only her voice, but her touch, her look, her very presence, all changed. It was as if her magnetic poles had reversed, and where they had once attracted, now repelled. I see now that when Norma flowered in our garden, I became a weed, allowed to exist only where I would not be seen, in corners and dark places. Seeing her face in the newspaper, I suddenly hated her. It would have been better if she had ignored the doctors and teachers and others who were so in a hurry to convince her that I was a moron, turning her away from me so that she gave me less love when I needed more. What good would it be to see her now? Would it do to see her now? What could she tell me about myself? And yet, I'm curious. How would she react? To see her and trace back to learn what I was, or to forget her? Is the past worth knowing? Why is it so important for me to say to her, Mom, look at me. I'm not retarded anymore. I'm normal, better than normal. I'm a genius? Even as I try to get her out of my mind, the memories seep back from the past to contaminate the here and now. Another memory, when I was much older, a quarrel. Charlie lying in bed with the covers pulled up around him. The room dark, except for the thin line of yellow light from the door ajar that penetrates the darkness to join both worlds. And he hears things, not understanding but feeling, because the rasp of their voices is linked to their talk of him. More and more each day he comes to associate that tone with a frown when they speak of him. He has been almost asleep when through the bar of light the soft voices were raised to the pitch of argument. His mother's voice sharp with the threat of one used to having her way through hysteria. He's got to be sent away. I don't want him in the house anymore with her. Call Dr. Portman and tell him we want to send Charlie to the Warren State Home. My father's voice is firm, steadying. But you know Charlie wouldn't harm her. It can't make any difference to her at this age. How do we know? Maybe it has a bad effect on a child to grow up with someone like him in the house. Dr. Portman said, Portman said, I don't care what he said. Think of what it will be like for her to have a brother like that. I was wrong all these years trying to believe he would grow up like other children. I admit it now. Better for him to be put away. Now that you've got her, you've decided you don't want him anymore. Do you think this is easy? Why are you making it harder for me? All these years everyone telling me he should be put away. Well, they were right. Put him away. Maybe at the home with his own kind he'll have something. I don't know what's right or wrong anymore. All I know is I'm not going to sacrifice my daughter for him now. And though Charlie has not understood what passes between them, he is afraid and sinks beneath the covers, eyes open, trying to pierce the darkness that surrounds him. As I see him now, he is not really afraid, just withdrawing, as a bird or squirrel backs off from the brusque movements of the feeder, involuntary, instinctive. The light through that door ajar comes to me again in luminous vision. Seeing Charlie huddled beneath the covers, I wish I could give him comfort, explain to him that he has done nothing wrong, that it is beyond him to change his mother's attitude back to what it was before his sister came. There on the bed, Charlie did not understand what they were saying, but now it hurts. If I could reach out into the past of my memories, I would make her see how much she was hurting me. This is no time to go to her, not until I've had time to work it out for myself. Fortunately, as a precaution, I withdrew my savings from the bank as soon as I arrived in New York. $886 won't last long, but it'll give me time to get my bearings. I've checked into the Camden Hotel on 41st Street, a block from Times Square. New York. All the things I've read about it. Gotham, the melting pot, Baghdad on the Hudson, city of light and color. Incredible that I've lived and worked all my life just a few stops away on the subway and been to Times Square only once, with Alice. It's hard to keep from calling her. I've started and stopped myself several times. I've got to keep away from her. So many confusing thoughts to get down. I tell myself that as long as I keep taping my progress reports, nothing will be lost. The record will be complete. Let them be in the dark for a while. I was in the dark for more than 30 years. But I'm tired now. Didn't get to sleep on the plane yesterday, and I can't keep my eyes open. I'll pick up at this point tomorrow. June 16th. Called Alice, but hung up before she answered. Today, I found a furnished apartment. $95 a month is more than I plan to spend, but it's on 43rd and 10th Avenue, and I can get to the library in 10 minutes to keep up with my reading and study. The apartment is on the 4th floor, 4 rooms, and there's a rented piano in it. The landlady says that one of these days the rental service will pull it out, but maybe by that time I can learn to play it. Algernon is a pleasant companion. At meal times, he takes his place at the small gate-leg table. He likes pretzels, and today he took a sip of beer while we watched the ball game on TV. I think he rooted for the Yankees. I'm going to move most of the furniture out of the second bedroom and use the room for Algernon. I plan to build him a three-dimensional maze out of scrap plastic that I can pick up cheaply downtown. There are some complex maze variations I'd like him to learn to be sure he keeps in shape. But I'm going to see if I can find some motivation other than food. There must be other rewards that will induce him to solve problems. Solitude gives me a chance to read and think, and now that the memories are coming through again, to rediscover my past, to find out who and what I really am. If anything should go wrong, I'll have at least that. June 19th. Met Faye Lilman, my neighbor across the hall. When I came back with an armful of groceries, I discovered I had locked myself out, and I remembered that the front fire escape connected my living room window and the apartment directly across the hall. The radio was on loud and brassy, so I knocked softly at first and then louder. Come on in, door's open. I pushed the door and froze because standing in front of an easel painting was a slender blonde in a pink bra and panties. Sorry, I gasped, closing the door again. From outside, I shouted, I'm your neighbor across the hall. I locked myself out and I wanted to use the fire escape to get over to my window. The door swung open and she faced me, still in her underwear, a brush in each hand, and hands on her hips. Didn't you hear me say come in? She waved me into the apartment, pushing away a carton full of trash. Just step over that pile of junk there. I thought she must have forgotten or not realized she was undressed, and I didn't know which way to look. I kept my eyes averted, looking at the walls, ceilings, everywhere but at her. The place was a shambles. There were dozens of little folding snack tables, all covered with twisted tubes of paint, most of them crusted dry like shriveled snakes, but some of them alive and oozing ribbons of color. Tubes, brushes, cans, rags, and parts of frames and canvas were strewn everywhere. The place was thick with odor compounded of paint, linseed oil, and turpentine, and after a few moments, the subtle aroma of stale beer. 3 overstuffed chairs and a mangy green couch were piled high with discarded clothing, and on the floor lay shoes, stockings, and underthings, as if she were in the habit of undressing as she walked and flinging her clothes as she went. A fine layer of dust covered everything. Well, you're Mr. Gordon, she said, looking me over. I've been dying to get a peek at you ever since you moved in. Have a seat. She scooped up a pile of clothing from one of the chairs and dumped it onto the crowded sofa. So you finally decided to visit your neighbors. Get you a drink? You're a painter, I burbled, for want of something to say. I was unnerved by the thought that at any moment she would realize she was undressed and would scream and dash for her bedroom. I tried to keep my eyes moving, looking everywhere but at her. Beer or ale? Nothing else in the place right now except cooking sherry. You don't want cooking sherry, do you? I can't stay, I said, getting hold of myself and fixing my gaze at the beauty mark on the left side of her chin. I've locked myself out of my apartment. I wanted to go across the fire escape. It connects our windows. Any time, she assured me. Those lousy patent locks are a pain in the ass. I locked myself out of this place 3 times the first week I lived here, and once I was out in the hall stark naked for half an hour. Stepped out to get the milk, and the goddamn door swung shut behind me. I ripped the goddamn lock off, and I haven't had one on my door since. I must have frowned because she laughed. Well, you see what the damn locks do. They lock you out, and they don't protect much, do they? 15 burglaries in this goddamn building in the past year, and every one of them in apartments that were locked. No one ever broke in here, even though the door was always open. They'd have a rotten time finding anything valuable here anyway. When she insisted again on my having a beer with her, I accepted. While she was getting it from the kitchen, I looked around the room again. What I hadn't noticed before was that the part of the wall behind me had been cleared away, all the furniture pushed to one side of the room or the center, so that the far wall, the plaster of which had been torn off to expose brick, served as an art gallery. Paintings were crowded to the ceiling and others were stacked against each other on the floor. Several of them were self-portraits, including 2 nudes. The painting she had been working on when I came in, the one on the easel, was a half-length nude of herself, showing her long hair, not the way she wore it now, up in blonde braids coiled around her head like a crown, down to her shoulders, with part of her long tresses twisted around the front and resting between her breasts. She had painted her breast up tilted and firm, with the nipples an unrealistic lollipop red. When I heard her coming back with the beer, I spun away from the easel quickly, stumbled over some books, and pretended to be interested in a small autumn landscape on the wall. I was relieved to see that she had slipped into a thin, ragged housecoat, even though it had holes in all the wrong places, and I could look directly at her for the first time. Not exactly beautiful, but her blue eyes and pert snub nose gave her a cat-like quality that contrasted with her robust athletic movements. She was about 35, slender and well-proportioned. She set the beers on the hardwood floor, curled up beside them in front of the sofa, and motioned for me to do the same. I find the floor more comfortable than chairs, she said, sipping the beer from the can. Don't you? I told her I hadn't thought about it, and she laughed and said I had an honest face. She was in the mood to talk about herself. She avoided Greenwich Village, she said, because there, instead of painting, she would be spending all her time in bars and coffee shops. It's better up here, away from the phonies and the dilettantes. Here I can do what I want, and no one comes to sneer. You're not a sneerer, are you? I shrugged, trying not to notice the gritty dust all over my trousers and my hands. I guess we all sneer at something. You're sneering at the phonies and dilettantes, aren't you? After a while, I said I'd better be getting over to my own apartment. She pushed a pile of books away from the window, and I climbed over newspapers and paper bags filled with empty quart beer bottles. One of these days, she sighed, I've got to cash them in. I climbed into the window sill and out to the fire escape. When I got my window open, I came back for my groceries, but before I could say thanks and goodbye, she started out onto the fire escape after me. Let's see your place. I've never been there. Before you moved in, the two little old Wagner sisters wouldn't even say good morning to me. She crawled through my window behind me and sat on the ledge. Come on in, I said, putting the groceries on the table. I don't have any beer, but I can make you a cup of coffee. But she was looking past me, her eyes wide in disbelief. My God, I've never seen a place as neat as this. Who would dream that a man living by himself would keep a place so orderly? I wasn't always that way, I apologized. It's just since I moved in here. It was neat when I moved in, and I've had the compulsion to keep it that way. It upsets me now if anything is out of place. She got down off the windowsill to explore the apartment. Hey, she said suddenly, do you like to dance? You know. She held out her arms and did a complicated step as she hummed a Latin beat. Tell me you dance and I'll bust. Only the foxtrot, I said, and not very good at that. She shrugged. I'm nuts about dancing, but nobody I ever meet that I like is a good dancer. I've got to get myself all dolled up once in a while and go downtown to the Stardust Ballroom. Most of the guys hanging around there are kind of creepy, but they can dance. She sighed as she looked around. Tell you what I don't like about a place so goddamned orderly like this. As an artist, it's the lines that get me. All the straight lines on the walls, on the floors, in the corners that turn into boxes like coffins. The only way I can get rid of the boxes is to take a few drinks. Then all the lines get wavy and wiggly, and I feel a lot better about the whole world. When things are all straight and lined up, this way I get morbid. Ugh! If I lived here, I would have to stay drunk all the time. Suddenly she swung around and faced me. Say, could you let me have 5 until the 20th? That's when my alimony check comes in. I usually don't run short, but I had a problem last week. Before I could answer, she screeched and started over to the piano in the corner. I used to play piano. I heard you fooling around with it a few times, and I said to myself, that guy's goddamn good. That's how I know I wanted to meet you even before I saw you. I haven't played in such a goddamn long time. She was picking away at the piano as I went into the kitchen to make a coffee. You're welcome to practice on it any time, I said. I don't know why I suddenly became so free with my place, but there was something about her that demanded complete unselfishness. I don't leave the front door open yet, but the window isn't locked, and if I'm not here, all you've got to do is climb in through the fire escape. Cream and sugar in your coffee? When she didn't answer, I looked back into the living room. She wasn't there, and as I started towards the window, I heard her voice from Algernon's room. Hey, what's this? She was examining the three-dimensional plastic maze I had built. She studied it and then let out another squeal. Modern sculpture! All boxes and straight lines! It's a special maze, I explained. A complex learning device for Algernon. But she was circling around it, excited. They'll go mad for it at the Museum of Modern Art. It's not sculpture, I insisted. I opened the door to Algernon's living cage attached to the maze and let him into the maze opening. My God, she whispered. Sculpture with a living element. Charlie, it's the greatest thing since junkmobiles and tin cania. I tried to explain, but she insisted that the living element would make sculpture history. Only when I saw the laughter in her wild eyes did I realize she was teasing me. It could be self-perpetuating art, she went on, a creative experience for the art lover. You get another mouse, and when they have babies, you always keep one to reproduce the living element. Your work of art attains immortality, and all the fashionable people buy copies for conversation pieces. What are you going to call it? All right, I sighed. I surrender. No, she snorted, tapping the plastic dome where Algernon had found his way into the gold box. Surrender is too much of a cliche. How about life is just a box of mazes? You're a nut, I said. Naturally. She spun around and curtsied. I was wondering when you'd notice. About then, the coffee boiled over. Halfway through the cup of coffee, she gasped and said she had to run because she had a date a half hour earlier with someone she met at an art exhibit. You wanted some money? I said. She reached into my half-open wallet and pulled out a $5 bill. Till next week, she said, when the check comes. Thanks a mil. She crumpled the money, blew Algernon a kiss, and before I could say anything, she was out the window, onto the fire escape, and out of sight. I stood there foolishly looking after her. So damn attractive, so full of life and excitement. Her voice, her eyes, everything about her was an invitation. And she lived out the window and just a fire escape away. June 20th. Perhaps I should have waited before going to see Matt, or not gone to see him at all. I don't know. Nothing turns out the way I expect it to. With the clue that Matt had opened a barber shop somewhere in the Bronx, it was a simple matter to find him. I remember he had sold for a barber supply company in New York. That led me to Metro Barbershop Supplies, who had a barbershop account under the name of Gordon's Barbershop on Wentworth Street in the Bronx. Matt had often talked about a barbershop of his own, how he hated selling, what battles they had about it. Rose screaming that a salesman was at least a dignified occupation, but she would never have a barber for a husband. And oh, wouldn't Margaret Finney snicker at the barber's wife? And what about Lois Minor, whose husband was a claims examiner for the Alarm Casualty Company? Wouldn't she stick her nose up in the air? During the years he worked as a salesman, hating every day of it, especially after he saw the movie version of Death of Salesman, Matt dreamed that he would someday become his own boss. That must have been in his mind in those days when he talked about saving money and gave me my haircuts down in the basement. They were good haircuts too, he boasted, a lot better than I get in that cheap barber shop on Scales Avenue. When he walked out on Rose, he walked out on selling too. And I admired him for that. I was excited at the thought of seeing him. Memories were warm ones. Matt had been willing to take me as I was. Before Norma, the arguments that weren't about money or impressing the neighbors were about me, that I should be let alone, of being pushed to do what other kids did. And after Norma, that I had a right to a life of my own, even though I wasn't like other children. Always defending me. I couldn't wait to see the expression on his face. He was someone I'd be able to share this with. Wentworth Street was a rundown section of the Bronx. Most of the stores on the street had "For Rent" signs in the windows, and others were closed for the day. But halfway down the block from the bus stop, there was a barber pole reflecting a candy cane of light from the window. The shop was empty except for the barber reading a magazine in the chair nearest the window. When he looked up at me, I recognized Matt, stocky, red-cheeked, a lot older, and nearly bald with a fringe of gray hair bordering the sides of his head, but still Matt. Seeing me at the door, he tossed the magazine aside. No waiting. You're next. I hesitated, and he misunderstood. Usually not open at this hour, mister. Had an appointment with one of my regulars, but he didn't show. Just about to close. Lucky for you, I sat down to rest my feet. Best haircut and shave in the Bronx. As I let myself be drawn into the shop, he bustled around, pulling out scissors and combs and a fresh neckcloth. Everything sanitary, as you can see, which is more than I can say for most barber shops in this neighborhood. Haircut and shave? I eased myself into the chair. Incredible that he didn't recognize me when I knew him so plainly. I had to remind myself that he had not seen me in more than 15 years and that my appearance had changed even more in the past months. He studied me in the mirror now that he had me covered with the striped neckcloth, and I saw a frown of faint recognition. The works, I said, nodding at the Union Shop price list. Haircut, shave, shampoo, suntan. His eyebrows went up. I've got to meet someone I haven't seen in a long time, I assured him, and I want to look my best. It was a frightening sensation having him cut my hair again. Later, as he stropped the razor against the leather, the harsh whisper made me cringe. I bent my head under the gentle press of his hand and felt the blade scrape carefully across my neck. I closed my eyes and waited. It was as if I were on the operating table again. My neck muscles knotted, and without warning, it twitched. The blade nicked me just above the Adam's apple. Hey, he shouted. Jesus, take it easy. You moved. Hey, I'm awful sorry. He dashed to wet a towel at the sink. In the mirror, I watched the bright red bubble and the thin line dripping down my throat. Excited and apologizing, he got to it before it reached the neckcloth. Watching him move, adroit for such a short, heavy man, I felt guilty at the deception. I wanted to tell him who I was and have him put his arm around my shoulder so we could talk about the old days. But I waited while he dabbed at the cut with a stick powder. He finished shaving me silently and then brought the suntan lamp over to the chair and put cool white pads of cotton soaked in witch hazel over my eyes. There, in the bright red inner darkness, I saw what happened the night he took me away from the house for the last time. Charlie is asleep in the other room, but he wakens to the sound of his mother shrieking. He has learned to sleep through quarrels. They are an everyday occurrence in this house. But tonight, there is something terribly wrong in that hysteria. He shrinks back into the pillows and listens. I can't help it. He's got to go. We've got her to think about. I won't have her come home from school crying every day like this because the children tease her. We can't destroy her chance for a normal life because of... What do you want to do? Turn him out into the street? Put him away. Send him to the Warren State Home. Let's talk it over in the morning. No. All you do is talk, and you don't do anything. I don't want him here another day. Now, tonight. Don't be foolish, Rose. It's too late to do anything. Tonight. You're shouting so loud everyone will hear you. I don't care. He goes out tonight. I can't stand looking at him anymore. You're being impossible, Rose. What are you doing? I warn you, get him out of here. Put that knife down. I'm not going to have her life destroyed. You're crazy. Put the knife down. Put the knife away. He's better off dead. He'll never be able to live a normal life. He'll be better off. You're out of your mind. For God's sake, control yourself. Then take him away from here. Now. Tonight. All right. I'll take him over to Herman tonight, and maybe tomorrow we'll find out about getting him into the Warren State Home. There's a silence. From the darkness, I feel the shudder pass over the house, and then Matt's voice, less panicky than hers. I know what you've gone through with him, and I can't blame you for being afraid, but you've got to control yourself. I'll take him over to Herman. Will that satisfy you? That's all I ask. Your daughter is entitled to a life, too. Matt comes into Charlie's room and dresses his son, and though the boy doesn't understand what's happening, he's afraid. As they go out the door, she looks away. Perhaps she's trying to convince herself that he has already gone out of her life, that he no longer exists. On the way out, Charlie sees on the kitchen table the long carving she cuts roasts with, and he senses vaguely that she wanted to hurt him. She wanted to take something away from him and give it to Norma. When he looks back at her, she has picked up a rag to wash the kitchen sink. When the haircut, shave, sun treatment, and rest are over, I sat in the chair limply, feeling light and slick and clean, and Matt whisked the neckcloth off and offered me a second mirror to see the reflection of the back of my head. Seeing myself in the mirror, looking into the back mirror as he held it for me, it tilted for an instant into one angle that produced the illusion of depth. Endless corridors of myself, looking at myself, looking at myself, looking at myself, looking. Which one? Who was I? I thought of not telling him. What good, what good was it for him to know? Just go away and not reveal who I was. Then I remembered that I wanted him to know. He had to admit that I was alive, that I was someone. I wanted him to boast about me to the customers tomorrow as he gave haircuts and shaves. That would make it all real. If he knew I was his son, then I would be a person. Now that you've got the hair off my face, maybe you'll know me, I said, as I stood up, waiting for a sign of recognition. He frowned. What is this, a gag? I assured him it was not a gag, and if he looked and thought hard enough, he would know me. He shrugged and turned to put his combs and scissors away. I got no time for guessing games. Gotta close up. That'll be $3.50. What if he didn't remember me? What if this was only an absurd fantasy? His hand was out for the money, but I made no move toward my wallet. He had to remember me. He had to know me. But no, of course not. And as I felt the sour taste in my mouth and the sweat in my palms, I knew that in a minute I would be sick. But I didn't want that in front of him. Hey, you all right? Yes, just wait. I stumbled into one of the chrome chairs and bent forward, gasping for breath, waiting for the blood to come back to my head. My stomach was churning. Oh God, don't let me faint now. Don't let me look ridiculous in front of him. Water, some water, please. Not so much for the drink as to make him turn away. I didn't want him to see me like this after all these years. By the time he returned with a glass, I felt a little better. Here, drink this. Rest a minute. You'll be okay. He stared at me as I sipped the cool water, and I could see him struggling with half-forgotten memories. Do I really know you from somewhere? No, I'm okay. I'll leave in a minute. How could I tell him? What was I supposed to say? Here, look at me. I'm Charlie, the son you wrote off the books. Not that I blame you for it, but here I am, all fixed up, better than ever. Test me, ask me questions. I speak 20 languages, living and dead. I'm a mathematical whiz, and I'm writing a piano concerto that will make them remember me long after I'm gone. How could I tell him? How absurd I was sitting in his shop, waiting for him to pat me on the head and say good boy. I wanted his approval, the old glow of satisfaction that came to his face when I learned to tie my own shoelaces and button my sweater. I had come here for that look on his face, but I knew I wouldn't get it. You want me to call a doctor? I wasn't his son. That was another Charlie. Intelligence and knowledge had changed me, and he would resent me, as the others from the bakery resented me, because my growth diminished him. I didn't want that. I'm okay, I said. Sorry to be a nuisance. I got up and tested my legs. Something I ate. I'll let you close up now. As I headed towards the door, his voice called after me sharply. Hey, wait a minute. His eyes met mine with suspicion. What are you trying to pull? I don't understand. His hand was out, rubbing his thumb and forefinger together. You owe me $3.50. I apologized as I paid him, but I could see that he didn't believe it. I gave him 5, told him to keep the change, and hurried out of the barber shop without looking back.